Acts chapter 2 is the second chapter of the Acts of the Apostles in the New Testament of the Christian Bible. It records the events on the day of Pentecost, about 10 days after the ascension of Jesus Christ. The book containing this chapter is anonymous, but early Christian tradition uniformly affirmed that Luke composed this book as well as the Gospel of Luke. Text. The original text is written in Con Greek and is divided into 47 verses. Some most ancient manuscripts containing this chapter are Papyrus 91, Codex Vaticanus, Codex Sinaiticus, Codex Beza, Codex Alexandrinus, Codex Ephraemi Scriptus, Codex Laudianus. Structure. This chapter can be grouped. Acts chapter 2 verses 1 to 4 equals the coming of the Holy Spirit. Acts chapter 2 verses 5 to 13 equals the crowd's response. Acts chapter 2 verses 14 to 39 equals Peter's first sermon. Acts chapter 2 verses 40 to 47 equals a vital church grows. Cross-reference. Acts chapter 2 verse 21, Joel chapter 2 verses 28 to 32. Acts chapter 2 verse 23, Psalm chapter 16 verses 8 to 11. Acts chapter 2 verse 35, Psalm chapter 110 verse 1. Coming of the Holy Spirit on the day of Pentecost. The biblical narrative of Pentecost is given in the second chapter of the book of Acts. Present were about 120 followers of Christ, including the 12 apostles, his mother Mary, various other women disciples and his brothers. The reception of the Holy Spirit in the upper room and their empowerment to speak in tongues are recounted in Acts chapter 2 verses 1 to 6, while those on whom the Spirit had descended were speaking in many languages. The Apostle Peter stood up with the 11 and proclaimed to the crowd that this event was the fulfillment of the prophecy of Joel. I will pour out my Spirit. In Acts chapter 2 verse 17, it reads, "And in the last days, God says, I will pour out my Spirit upon every sort of flesh, and your sons and your daughters will prophesy, and your young men will see visions, and your old men will dream dreams." Quote. He also mentions that it was the third hour of the day. Acts chapter 2 verse 41 then reports, "Then they that gladly received his word were baptized, and the same day there were added unto them about 3,000 souls." Peter stated that this event was the beginning of a continual outpouring of the Holy Spirit that would be available to all believers from that point on. Present and future generations of Jews and those who were afar off or distant. Text which is generally interpreted to refer to the Gentiles because a similar phrase was used by Paul in Ephesians chapter 2 verse 17. Upsilon mu iota nu tau omicron iota of sigma mu alpha kappa rho alpha nu, where the context clearly refers to Gentile converts to Christianity. Location of the first Pentecost. Traditional interpretation holds that the descent of the Holy Spirit took place in the upper room, or cenacle, while celebrating the day of Pentecost. The upper room was first mentioned in Luke chapter 22 verses 12 to 13. This upper room was to be the location of the Last Supper and the institution of Holy Communion. The next mention of an upper room is in Acts chapter 1 verses 13 to 14, the continuation of the Luke narrative authored by the same biblical writer. Here the disciples and women waited, and they gave themselves up to constant prayer. And when they were come in, they went up into an upper room, where abode both Peter and James and John and Andrew, Philip and Thomas, Bartholomew and Matthew, James the son of Alphaeus and Simon Zelotes, and Judas the brother of James. These all continued with one accord in prayer and supplication with the women and Mary the mother of Jesus. Jesus and with his brethren. Then, in Acts chapter 2 verses 1-2, and when the day of Pentecost was fully come, they were all with one accord in one place. And suddenly there came a sound from heaven as of a rushing mighty wind, and it filled all the house where they were sitting. They refers to the aforementioned disciples, and it includes the women. The place referring to the same upper room where these persons had continued with one accord in prayer and supplication.